Welcome to BlackUSA.News Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. This is the BlackUSA.News Morning Show, and I have the privilege, nay, the honor of serving as your host. I am William Honolulu Jr., and welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, we have an amazing show for you today. We're going to talk about education. We all know how important education is to the Black community. Much of the successes that we've been able to have as a people have come through and because of the educational institutions that have supported us. Whether they were the one-room schoolhouses back in the day, whether they were the secret schools during slavery, or whether they're the more modern schools that we have. Um, Education is going to be one of the key elements in us doing better for our children and helping them in their future. So we have Dr. Quinhon Scott with us today, and she's going to talk about, for those of us who are in education or those of us who work with children, what we can do to get into the field and how we can navigate our careers. And also talking a little bit about how do you balance the need to advocate for children and what's in their best interest and the need to keep your job. Because what I learned in my time working in education is sometimes those are not the same things, unfortunately. So we're going to have a great time talking about that. Oh, for those of you all who are logging onto this show or watching this show after seeing Donnie Glover and Edsel Brown talking this morning, ooh, I know y'all are already fired up, right? So anybody who didn't catch that, the special edition that Donnie Glover did this morning with Edsel Brown, really talking about, again, really anchoring into the Black experience. Like, being Black in America is hard. I know everybody thinks that their experience is hard. Yeah, okay. But our, yeah, it is very difficult, and there are not a lot of supports for us out there so that we can move forward. So having an opportunity to talk to people like Edsel from the Black Southern Maryland Chamber of Commerce, and talking about legislation and what's been going on and how we, because a lot of it is how we can do what we can do to make the things that we need happen and make the government responsive to us. Um, Hey Rico, how's it going? Good morning to you, sir. Good morning. Um, let's see. Oh, what else? Oh my God, I almost forgot. You know, we got to thank our sponsors, the people that make this possible. It's big ups to STEM City USA, Dr. Tyrone Taborn. We are currently streaming live in the metaverse, first. And it's all because of STEM City USA. They have done a great job in supporting Black technology and providing information and communication basis for communication throughout the Black community. So big ups to them. If you all get an opportunity, please don't hesitate to go over there and check them out. Edible arrangements, you know how I feel about them. So what did we learn? What did we learn? We learned that if we want to make William happy, we get the pineapple covered with white chocolate because it is amazing. And all of their fruit is amazing. Like, yeah, the only other person I've ever known who consistently gets good fruit like them is my mama. But I know she spends hours in the grocery store looking for it, and she's my mama. So I don't know how Edible Arrangements does it nationally for everybody, because I know my mama she doesn't have that much free time. So I am happy whenever I get one. It is a great way to celebrate, and honestly, celebrating anything, celebrating a graduation, or celebrating someone's life after they pass. Murphy, Falcon, and Murphy. If you find yourself in the midst of some civil litigation, you find that you are being harassed or there's some shenaniganizing happening at work, give Murphy, Falcon, and Murphy a call. Reach out to them. It actually, it doesn't hurt at all. And they are in the community and they've been doing amazing work. Judge Murphy has been fighting for civil rights since before I was born. So, well, You know what? I did get a text message saying that he might not. Well, he's been doing it a long time. How about this? How at least since I've been an adult. How about that? Okay. Because I think those extra time may make him a little bit older than he wants to be known as. So I get coached. We talk about this all the time. We all get coached. We all need somebody to tell us what we need to do. Mm. And again, if you want to have some good food and you want to get it from an organization does amazing stuff in the community, Darker Than Blue on Charles Street. Darker Than Blue Grill is amazing. And like I tell you all the time, the salmon, oh my God. So make sure that you head over to Darker Than Blue Grill. Good morning, Michael from Tampa. Make sure you head over to Darker Than Blue Grill and enjoy the food that they have there. Whew. Oh, if you find yourself on the unfortunate side of a criminal situation, make sure you give the warrior lawyer Jay Wendell Gordon a call. Um, Jay Wendell Gordon is the warrior lawyer. Like honestly, if you want to just check him out, go on his Facebook page and look at how many clients that he delivers people. You know what I mean? Like, or go to Judicial Case Search, or I think it's called Judicial Case Search in Maryland, and look at his record and look at the cases that he's been representing. He does an amazing job, and again, he cares about the community. So if you find yourself on the wrong side, go ahead and holler at him. And of course, the Grinding Gang, my company, we want to help you take your business to the next level. It is a hard thing to be in business nowadays. Um, I was just talking to our next guest about how even in the background, the people that we would normally rely on, the people that we can normally go to, they're tapped out, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Like we've been going at this and for 2 years, and it's not getting easier. We're getting more used to it, but it's not getting easier. And we want to help you figure out what you need to do in this new phase of life, this new world that we find ourselves in. What is it that you need to do to take your business to the next level, or hell, in some cases, just get stable? So just visit the website, grindinggang.com. There's a lot of free resources. And you know what? While you're there, schedule an appointment with me and we can talk about your business and chop it up. And I can tell you some of the stuff I can't say on the air because, they have rules. So, you know what? I'm not going to introduce her yet. I'm going to go and get rid of some of the, not get rid of, wow, deal with some of the other stuff on our agenda before I tell you all about the amazing, incomparable Dr. Scott. So let's see. Told you about Edsel Brown from the Southern Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce with Donnie Glover this morning. That was a great show. Tomorrow, well, no, yesterday actually, we talked to Trey Kearney about the no side chicking movement. We talked about how to develop a relationship and how to deal with infidelity. And it was interesting because, like she said, a lot of people, when she's talking about how to deal with infidelity, they're like, oh, well, how did he cheat on you? She's like, whoa, 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 I was the cheater. I was the one that was engaged in the infidelity. And a lot of times we're looking to fix somebody else when we're not taking an opportunity to look at what we did. How did we contribute to the situation? You all know I talk about my co-parenting journey all the time, where I had a vision of my family in my head, and I tried to make them that without recognizing that I never asked them. I just assumed that that's what they wanted, and it led me down a road that ended in divorce. Simple as that. But there are a lot of things that I've learned since then, and we had an opportunity to talk to Trey about it. It was a very powerful episode. So if you didn't see it yesterday, one, why'd you miss it? Why? Hello. But if you did, it's available on Facebook and YouTube. Just check us out. Big shout out to Stephanie Jerger from basically all things. Stephanie, well, officially she works for the Organic Trade Association, working with businesses, trying to educate people and get more of them involved in agribusiness. Black organic farming is a really big thing, and there's a lot of money coming for it. So we're going to talk to Stephanie in a little bit, a couple weeks from now, and get her take on what needs to happen next and how we can make sure we can take advantage of some of that money. And also, big shout out to J. Howard Henderson. J. Howard Henderson is a civil rights pioneer. You know, he was the chief of staff for the NAACP and helped them relocate their offices from New York to Baltimore. And he has mentored thousands of black men and women throughout the country and really have helped us. And actually, he's responsible for me getting to know my next guest, Dr. Quinhon Scott. Dr. Scott this is just a compilation of some of the organizations that Dr. Scott has worked with. I had an opportunity to get to know Dr. Scott professionally in our volunteer work with the Greater Baltimore Urban League's Young Professionals, Greater Baltimore Leadership Association. And then we had a chance to work together at Baltimore City Public Schools. And I got to be honest, I learned a lot. I thought I knew, y'all know me. I thought I knew stuff. I thought I knew what needed to happen in education. But I was able to bring my skills to the table, but really get an opportunity to learn some of the stuff that I still talk about now about the humanness of the children, how to engage them as actual people, not just these products for us to do. And she's going to talk to us about how you manage your career or how we get into education. And now I have the pleasure of bringing to you Dr. Scott. Hello, Doc. How's it going?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing very well. Very, very well. So
Okay.
I know you have also been nicknamed the PD principal, and that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. How educators can really advance and develop their careers. But let's talk first about like how did you get into education? Is this like when you were little? Did you have like a little like in your room with a pad and pen? Like I'm going to be a teacher one day. I'm going to be a principal. Is that what your story, or did you come to education some other way?
So as a little girl, I absolutely was not going to be an educator. I come from a family of educators, and so I had made up in my mind that I was not going to follow suit of all the stories that I heard over the years. However, I think it was some failures happened, and
Mm-hmm.
education is what I did naturally. Being
Okay.
here with people, being able to teach. And so I went from substituting because I was going to be Oprah Winfrey, I thought, right? And I was going to be the next broadcaster. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so after I was unsuccessful working at a radio station, not making any money, I decided that I needed to find something else to do. And I
Right.
substitute teaching to supplement my income.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was still in school, so I was able to kind of shift my major, and
Okay.
it allowed me to find other educational opportunities while I was still in school. Um,
Okay.
so that's pretty much how I got into the field itself. I moved to Baltimore about 17 years ago to pursue my doctorate at Morgan. While I
Mm-hmm.
was in class at Morgan, I met 3 educators who talked about a school every single day. And they talked about the inhumaneness that was
Mm-hmm.
going on at the school and all of the things that the school needed. And I was so intrigued. I said, I want to be a part of helping the school. And
Okay.
so that is my start of becoming a teacher in Baltimore City.
Okay. All right. And so one of the things that I think people should really recognize now, while there's only 7% of the overall educator population, professional educator population is Black, a lot of Black people, in my experience, have come to education not necessarily through a more traditional route, like I've always wanted to be a teacher, but has come to it much like you did through a secondary career or like an alternative career, an alternative career from what they thought they were going to do. And so when you enter it like that, there's a lot of planning that I'm assuming that you would have done had you begin in education, like, growing up, some internships and stuff like that you may have done. So for those of us who may be transitioning into education as an alternative career, how would you recommend we get it? Because I've heard you had to have licenses and certificates, take more classes, or I might have to go back to school. Like, it just seems a lot, especially on the other side where people are always talking about how short they are with teachers. So, if I want to get into education and I'm not already in it, how should I look at that?
Yeah. So first, I'll say that if you are thinking about getting into education, please do. If you
Okay.
are a African American woman or man or binary, and you want to be an educator, please seek support. Like, there are people who are willing to walk you step by step, so that you can become an educator, because our children need you.
Okay.
There are multiple avenues in which, if you are interested in switching a career, that you can become a part of. So there's multiple different organizations. I am a part of New Leaders for New Schools, that at one point just supported principals and becoming principals, but now they do an array of different supports, from school leaders to teacher leaders. So they're an avenue. We know TFA, Teach for America, which is very popular. When we worked together in our time in Baltimore City, many of our teachers came from TFA, Teach for America. Baltimore City has its own pipeline in which they are recruiting teachers, retaining teachers, and supporting teachers along the way. So depending on what city you're in, there are multiple organizations, some national, some local, that will be able to support your work. And many school districts have individual supports. In reference to certification, so for many large districts, you do have to be certified. But of course, we know that the charter movement is ever present right now.
Okay.
Currently, I'm working in DC at the DC Charter School Board, where we have, in our sector of charter schools, we have over 162 schools, and you don't have to be certified to work in any of those schools. It's definitely a plus. Many schools do ask that you have your master's, but because the need is so great, the many schools, especially our larger schools, our KIPP DC, our Friendship, Center City, these are our large CMOs where they have more than one school.
CMO? You about to throw words at me. So you said CMO. I don't know no CMO. I don't do no CMO.
These are our large these are our large charter schools that they have multiple schools within one area.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. So it sounds like if I don't have a lot of educational experience, or a lot of educational certifications, reaching out to a charter school might actually be, and if I remember correctly, charter schools also have less like paperwork and bureaucracy than a lot of the school districts do. So would it be an easier way to get into education going to charter schools?
I won't say easier. I'll say that charter schools have a tailored mission-specific goal. And based on their mission-specific goal determines the time commitment. So you may have a charter school where it's a 10-hour day versus a 7.5-hour day. So depending on the mission for that charter school will determine a lot of its inputs and outputs. So if you are looking to get into a school system or a school, if it's an individual charter school, it's best for you to assess where you're living, what are the options for the schools that are available, and then contact their human resources, human capital office, and then seek requirements. A lot of times you may not need to take, if you're in a district like Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Arundel, you may not have to take additional classes. Your current transcript may fulfill many of the requirements for you to get a temporary certificate, which the state of Maryland offers, where through that temporary certificate, you'll have 2 years where 2 years in which you can work on your temporary certificate, get all the benefits of a full-time state worker. And then after that 2-year period, you'll be required to actually pass the certification.
Okay. So it sounds like it's not just getting it even as a substitute. It's not just a quick fix. It's, you still have to go through paperwork and different layers. If I'm thinking about, hey, you know what? I think I might want to, I'm sorry, you gave me good information about the pathway, the actual process, but is there anything that I could do to prepare myself to be ready to be a teacher? Like, because a lot of times we think that there is, we have an internship, that there is this practical application of it. And also for me, I know one of the big parts was when I got there, the difference in what I thought was going to happen versus what the reality was. That was a huge adjustment. Is there any way to get prepared? Because most of us who are not in education, we have heard all of the stuff. We've read the news articles. We've listened to the politicians. We know whose fault it is. We know that if we just did this, and sometimes we bring those biases and that ignorance, and not ignorance in the pejorative way, but like we just don't know any better. And so we've created this entire thought process and we bring it to the table. And when you hit the ground, I remember for me, it was very disorienting. Like the lives of the students, like, well, wait a minute. So, because for me, school had always been this place where you go to prove yourself. It was a proving ground. And because that was the way I engaged, that's the way I was brought up in it. But what I realized is, for some people, it is their only safe space. Like the school has now become more of a nurturing agency. And we have Brandy who said, like, how long does it take? And it sounds like it really depends on who the school is, how bad the need, and what they're willing to bend to get you in there.
I mean, it's true. All schools are different. To answer your first question, I'll say the best thing for you to do is to connect to a mentor, because there's no way that you can actually know what's going to happen before you get there. It's like life will be your best teacher, and you just have to live it to really understand it.
Okay.
Every day there's a different situation, and that different situation will cause you to pivot and shift, and maybe tap into resources that you didn't realize you would have to tap into working in a school system.
Right.
Like, I remember when you and I worked together, and I was like, I have to purchase washer and dryers. And you're like, why do you have to purchase washer and dryers for your social workers? So I understood that was the need at that time, but every school
explain it. No, but actually, I think that's a really great example. Really walk them through why the school needed washers and dryers like that. And I think that is one of the really great examples on the distinction about what we believe schools do and what schools actually do. So yeah, talk about the washer and dryer situation.
Yeah, well, I'll just frame it. So we were at one of our smaller Baltimore City 6 through 12 schools. We had about 600 students. Well, we started out about 300, and we were growing. Before I left, we had about 650. And as we were getting students, we understood that we were attracting a certain population of students. So this was about 10 years ago, but we were attracting a lot of our transgender students, students that were questioning their identity, and we were making a safe haven for those students. We also were attracting students who were whose families struggled with social economic status. So we had a large food bank in which we delivered food to families in our school and in the community, where we received, in some cases, 50,000 pounds of food. If you can imagine that, where people standing out in line to get food on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So I understood the population we were attracting as a school leader, which caused this ripple effect of identifying different needs. So we needed additional social workers to support the social emotional needs that impact students when they are going through needing food, needing additional clothing, not having supports at home where they can actually wash their clothes.
Right.
So we had people on campus who could wash the clothes for them. So this covering the whole student, because I truly believe at the time, with a group of members of the team, including you, that if students were whole, then they could learn. And if they weren't whole, they would have problems and inconsistencies learning
Right.
things that they should that would help them long term.
Oh, look at you! You got a good morning from your good friend Shonda.
Yeah, Shawna Duncan, one of the best math teachers I've ever known in my life. Shonda and I had the pleasure of working side by side. She was one of the people that I met when I first arrived to Baltimore and told me about Lombard Middle School. And she and I worked together at Lombard. And then, quick story about Shonda: when I became the principal of ACE, the operators had tried to get Shonda for years to come. And when I told them I was going to get her to come be a math teacher, they said, "You'll never get her. We've tried our best to get her." And sure enough, she came. And I always said the operators always resented me for being able to get Shawna Duncan to come.
Yeah, she said it was great times. It really was great times there, and one of the reasons that I wanted you to talk about that, and I'm glad that it came up about the need, addressing the needs of the children, is that sometimes there is, because I remember there were some times where doing things like that caused a problem. Because there's this idea that, and I was one of the people, so I'm throwing shade at myself too. It was like, if we just focus and be harder on them, if we can get them focused, become more rigid, and teach them how to comply, make compliance their only option, then it'll work. They'll be better. Because I didn't realize, and actually one of the things I learned working with you was that the system was not designed to help them to think; it was help them to be compliant, and that was part of the problem. It was not designed to meet their, the other institutions in our community have failed because of government interventions, like the family has failed because of the input of the influx of crack in our communities, and also a lot of the policies that broke up the family. You can't get public benefits if you live with if you have a family unit. And so all of those things. So one of the big challenges that I saw several times, especially at ACE, was this competition between what's in the best interest of the student and what's in the best interest of the system. Because the system wants to test kids all the time to show the system's value or to assess its workers. But that's not necessarily helpful for the kids. So things like trying to fight for a washer and dryer, and people like me who would be in central office, like, the school don't need no washer and dryer. How is that going to help with test scores? So how do you prepare for that part? Because I know a lot of people, especially African Americans, who come to teaching, they're coming because they want to help kids. Like, they have seen and they have felt the calling to change that. Like my oldest son, LJ, I'm sorry, William Honolulu III, the math teacher at the school in New Jersey. Sorry, yeah, I keep forgetting that he's a whole grown ass man. Like, he's like a
Real
whole grown. Oh, you know what? I gotta tell you, he brought his girlfriend home for Christmas, but that's a separate issue. Damn, I forgot what I was talking. Oh yeah, so they get into teaching because they want to make a change in students' lives. But then they hit a district who says, I remember this one. Well, granted, you did take a knife off the student, but the blade is only 3 inches. Now, with the bat, it's 4, and that would be enough for suspension. But since the knife is only 3 inches, he can just come back to school day after tomorrow. And especially when he's threatened another student with this knife, and the district has said, like, again, way above everybody's pay grade, this will happen. How do you navigate those things?
I just had an opportunity to recently reconnect with our dean of discipline during that time. And we talked about just how different things are in this like short period of time. I think I've been gone in Baltimore City like 6 years. And in 6 years, how things have just dramatically changed based on new leader, new rules, that kind of thing. No suspension. And, I often struggled with, I had this internal political conflict. And the internal political conflict I dealt with is looking at students individually and supporting them individually based on what I and the team believe was right for the student.
Right.
versus what the rules and policies stated for the school as a whole.
Right.
Um, and so, using your example as a knife, we know the students get caught up in different things. ACE was nestled in a predominantly white area, and we had predominantly African Americans traveling from across the city of Baltimore, northeast and west coming, and so primarily west. And so we know that a lot of students carried weapons of different sorts just so that they would be comfortable. So we
Just
found
going back and forth to school, like not even in school.
so
Yeah.
we found a lot of things. And so I had to a lot of times ignore the precedent of expectations from central office, and create my own internal rules and responses, because of I still wanted students to be successful. And I
Absolutely.
understood that if a student got caught with a large knife, if a student got caught with large quantity of drugs, and they were a good student, then in some cases their career may be over,
Right. So, and I think one of the things that you are anchoring back in on is the fact that there are a lot of social ills that these students are dealing with. And that was one of the amazing things for me, because I didn't realize, and you used to call me on this on a regular basis, my privilege. Um, two-parent household, growing up in Washington, D.C., and then Prince George's County. I was like, I had it rough. Like, I could name all of my challenges and traumas. And so, but I still didn't realize that even in my challenges and traumas, there was a privilege, like even the privilege of knowing how I was going to get to school, knowing that somebody was going to make a way somehow for me to get to school. I have never been hungry. Mama, well, Mama Hanabu, she makes sure ain't nobody around her hungry. And so I didn't realize how big a privilege those things were. I remember when my mother was a teacher, she used to keep, so I have issues still, because she used to buy all these snacks and stuff like that and take them to school for those kids. Like the kids would get honey buns and stuff like that. And I'm like, I was good and I don't even get a honey bun. Like, I don't understand. But it's exactly what you're talking about. She
And
understood that those kids were dealing with some stuff that I didn't even have the wherewithal to understand.
And it's so important to have educators like that, because the truth of the matter is that the social ills of whatever the city is located, those social ills come into the public schoolhouse and impact those students. So in a place like Baltimore City Public Schools, where the city itself has over 300 murders, has over 600 attempts for murders, and just, that's not to count like the robberies. That's not to talk about the drugs. It's not to talk about the homelessness. All of those ills heavily impact the schoolhouse. And so that's why I always advocated for, Baltimore City has one social worker per 300 students, but I always use the money to make sure additional monies to make sure we had additional social workers. We were 600 students with 4 social workers, but that was necessary because the social ills will put a blight.
It wasn't even enough. Real talk.
It wasn't.
But one of the things I do, so one of the things that Brandy just asked is like, how do you get a kid to graduate when they start realizing the truth about bureaucracy? Kind of the stuff we're talking about. Once you realize that, and so this is one of the things we talk about education. I understand that education is the key to alleviate a lot of our social ills. But one of the things that we've talked about several times is that the traditional educational model is specifically designed to just make you compliant. It's designed for kids. Actually, it was you who told me about this. The first mandatory school, we worked on it together. The first mandatory school law, mandatory attendance law, was in the New England states to keep these kids who were the street urchins and teach them how to behave. It wasn't about educating them. It wasn't about making them successful. And every time we talk about a reform for education, it is always tied to how can we make them better employees. So we are just looking at them as like raw material that our factory shapes and molds and shoots out, shapes and molds and shoots out. And one of the things I appreciated at ACE was we understood the kids. Like, we took an opportunity to understand that they needed more social workers. And so how do you navigate the understanding that this is really all just pretend to make you more qualified for a job. And this is what you have to do. Like, you are going to mess up if you don't have the high school diploma, even though, some of my friends talk about how now it's like they're just made on Xerox machines. But even if you don't have the high school diploma, there are options that you won't have. How do you communicate that? But at the same time, knowing that some of it is real bull. Like, they don't actually give a damn if you actually know anything. You follow directions, and you follow 12 years worth of directions. Now you can go.
So part of it is, I don't know if you remember my philosophy, but I believe education was life or death.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
Either we're going to make sure that students live long term, or we are going to be a part of those that kill students early. Mm-hmm. And, I always share that those students that graduate with a high school diploma live longer than those students that don't. So I always anchor decisions, and students have to graduate. We have to provide resources and tools for students to graduate so that they would have what they need. So I would just say that part of it is that the schoolhouse can't do it on its own. Part of it is resources. I definitely, ACE had the internship program where every Thursday, every junior had an opportunity to go into the work field and have an experience. I think that that experience coupled with support from internal in the building and external really helped. I also think like the parent connection, we had such a strong parent advocate group, and they also advocated for different resources. I'll tell you another thing that I believe that really helped as far as like sealing a deal for graduation and making sure that there was something else was that ACE was partnered with YouthWorks through the city. They guaranteed that every student, if they wanted it, could have a job. We provided an extra layer that for our students that were excelling academically, they could go to the University of Baltimore. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the dual enrollment.
Duncan helped set this up. We could go to the University of Baltimore. They could earn classes in the summer, earn credits in the summertime.
I remember. Diddy went to that. I remember that.
Yes, prepare for the AccuPlacer. And so now you're earning money in the summertime. You're able to graduate with credits. You've also had the college experience in your home city. So even though you're in the city of Baltimore, you see way outside of what the news has provided you. Right. So resources and supports, partnerships are so essential when you're thinking about, one, becoming a teacher, two, how to support the students once you're in the classroom. And part of it starts with you recognizing that you can't do it by yourself. Even like as a teacher, you really need a strong team. I would say ACE was my most successful school, not because of the money, but because of the team that was there with me.
Oh yeah, the team that at ACE was hot and heavy, ride or die. Well, let me say most of the team. Because one of the things that you will find as an educator, real talk, is that there are some people who are there to game the system and don't really give a damn about the kids you're working with. That's just real talk. And there are some who care so much that they enable the students. They're like, oh, there was one program that came in, and this after school program was designed specifically to work with the students who had the most significant challenges. And I remember one time there was after hours and they were doing the tutoring, and there were two of the students who were running through the building. I was like, yo, what are y'all doing? They said, oh, we're playing hide and seek. We told our tutors that if they could find us, then we'd sit down and do the work for an hour. And I was like, yo, what is happening? And again, we weren't talking about third graders. These are like 10th, 11th graders. But it was one of those things that these people who were coming, they weren't teachers, but these people were coming in, they were so open and wanted to help. They didn't realize that they were getting gamed. And so sometimes you have situations like, I understand I came in because I had learned education through bullying. It's like, what is the answer? What's going on? Testing. And I was okay with that. That made sense to me. But as I started realizing that other people needed different things, I started realizing like, well, maybe I should talk to them as, people. Like maybe they have an idea about what they should have. And I learned that at ACE, and I've been able to take that into other places. But how do you deal if you're an educator who like you are passionate about youth, like you want to save them all? Like if you could get a Pokemon ball and just catch them and train them yourselves, you would. and you get into a situation and there's a person who and not because I've seen this before, it's not just that you haven't, you're not into it, you're not in it to win it, but you actually, I've seen teachers trigger students.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, so what do you, or they just have an attitude with certain students? Like, what would I do as an educator in that situation? Because cussing my coworker out, I mean, that would be my default. But I that's also why I don't have a job where I work for other people. But so like, what do you do? What do you do as a passionate educator when other people are just bullshit?
So I'll say I have been an educator that has triggered students, and sometimes you do it really from ignorance. So, like you,
Uh,
I came from a 2-parent household. When I moved to Baltimore, there were certain things that happened in Pittsburgh that I never saw in Pittsburgh or in Raleigh, where I went to undergrad, until I moved here. So, for example,
mm,
I never saw people getting evicted where all of their items were set out in front.
mhm,
I've never saw as many rats as I saw until I moved to Baltimore City. So some of the impacts of the city coming early on, I didn't understand because I was never exposed to it. I
mhm.
think Pittsburgh's an urban city, but I would argue that there's levels of urbanism
Oh, absolutely.
in the United States, and I was unaware between
Oh,
Baltimore.
there's levels of urbanism in the same city.
I would absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
So I had those experiences. And so one of the things is that I would seek out others, colleagues who have great rapport with students. I would ask them to provide additional support so that I can develop that same rapport. And oftentimes you develop rapport by just watching how they build relationships, watching what's important to them. And so
Mhm.
I am really grateful for colleagues who, at that particular time, had long tenure in the school. And I was able to identify that I need what they have in order for me to continue to grow in education.
It sounds like one of the recurring answers to most questions is find yourself a mentor, or find yourself a tribe. So talk about, like, you are a naturally engaging person. Like, you go places, you literally, I've seen you prepared to walk in and dazzle people. You got. I'm gonna tell the business. Again, we don't keep it 100 here, but we keep it 85. And like, you plan and have been trained on how to network, how to ask for resources and stuff like that. Well, that's not been my story. I've always been you should be able to figure this out on your own. How do I make the transition if I'm getting into education? I really want to help the students. How do I even start with finding somebody, a mentor or somebody to talk to, and finding the right one? Because all folk ain't good folk, all skin folk ain't kin folk. There are some people who may seem like they're committed, but they are enablers, and you may not want to be with that. So how do you screen through and find help as an educator?
Yes, I don't want to anchor that all the answers are through mentorship, right? Because I
Okay.
think that
Okay.
there's a lot of things that you can do on your own. So there's an array of books by some amazing authors that really give you the formula for you to be successful,
Hmm.
specifically if you're working in an urban environment. YouTube right now seals the deal between YouTube and webinars, really seals the deal with a lot of people on the what, the how, the where, the resources. So I'll say that as well. So books, webinars, looking at videos. And then before we actually get into the mentorship, I'll also even lift that sometimes it's about you watching, like you just don't develop relationships. So everybody in the school knows the teacher that has their class down packed, that their
Hmm.
students listen to them. When they walk by, students get quiet. And so that happens just about in every school. So
There's that one.
there's the one, right? So you want to connect yourself, and connect yourself doesn't mean having a conversation with them. Connect yourself is, can I just sit in the back of your room and just watch? Can I just kind of see and observe? The other thing that really doesn't happen a lot, but I always did it as a leader, is the blind walk, where you can go into a classroom and you should be able to identify what the teacher's teaching, what the classroom feels like, what is on the walls, where you don't even have to have a relationship with a teacher, but can I just step into your room because there's something about the impact of that teacher's classroom where students know it's time to learn. And
So
so, go ahead.
on that point, though, one of the things that I know a lot of educators had, and it's so funny that they used to talk about this when I was at ACE, the evaluation. The funny part is that the staff is like, oh, the teachers are doing I mean, the principal is doing evaluation to catch us, and the principal is like, I don't want to do this damn evaluation, and so everybody is stuck with this activity that nobody really wants to do. The teachers are stressed as hell over it. The principal is stressed because if the teacher doesn't agree, now you got union issues, and it may start this whole back and forth and blah blah blah. And what ends up happening is that a lot of the gifted students get lost in the shuffle because the teachers are so trying to focus on, am I hitting it? Am I, what are it's more of a checklist as opposed to an engagement. And I guess this kind of comes back to, how do you balance your job and the paycheck every week or 2 weeks, depending on your district, and knowing, because I know there have been some times where we've talked with, like, in your heart that this policy is absolutely deleterious to not just a student but your population. And how do you know when you take? Because I've seen teachers take on risks. Hell, I've seen one teacher take kids back and forth to school in their personal car and stuff like that, and was suggested don't do that. But guess what? There was the kids, they stayed after to work with her to get better grades. It's dark outside and it's cold, and I can't blame her. But a couple weeks later, one of the kids took her car keys and went for a joyride. And so, like, that is, and again, real story, like real story. And so, as a teacher, like, I know that there's an amazing opportunity to really engage and transform lives. But sometimes they steal my car. Oh, you remember the time they stole? We're not gonna bring up his name, but the time those keys got stolen and they kept the kids kept talking. So there was a teacher who we work with who had challenges engaging with students. And he was incredibly aggressive with them. And so what the kids did is they took his car keys, and I'm laughing, but I'm laughing more about how ballistic his response was for weeks. And I get why, but it really didn't seal his point about they're treating me improperly. But that's the thing. So how do you balance? I want to help you, but you all keep doing what would in your community be considered normal kid stuff, but I'm not a normal kid from your community. I don't understand just joyriding in my car. Sorry, I was long. I'm still working through some stuff. I apologize.
Yeah, but part of it is like you understanding grade bands and what are the character traits that happens with students in these grade bands. So I'll give you an example. Before, one of the things that happened before I left the principalship is that we had a student who was masturbating naked and sent this video to a boy. And so the boy airdropped it in the school. And so anybody that had an iPhone got the video. And Airdrop had become so big that one of the things we realized is that anytime something was going on and somebody with an iPhone got it, they would just airdrop it to the school. So issues that at one point could be contained became monstrous because of Airdrop.
Mm-hmm.
So I was ready to have the girl suspended. Like, oh, she got to go. Like, not only is she providing, it's one thing to have nude pictures, but, she's masturbating on the video. And I appreciate our social worker who said this is common behavior for her age group. So part of it really is having a team around you who is able to share their responses without fear of being rejected, so their voice matters in the room. So I say that's one. I said the other part is having a nucleus. So when something happens, anytime something arises, right? Whether it's you have to spend money, you have to suspend a student, you have to put the whole school on lockdown. What is that nucleus root cause center that you're going to go to? And for me, it was always the safety of students. So anytime I made a decision, I learned that it has to be anchored in the safety of students. So I'll say the teachers have to have an anchor and school leaders have to have an anchor. Sometimes the anchors are the same, but
Right.
sometimes they're not. But it's so important that as you're making these decisions, it can be emotional, because when you're working with student lives, it's such an emotional windstorm, especially when you have students who are grieving, not just death, but grieving life.
Yes.
And you are connected to these students, and so oftentimes you take on the emotions of other people because you really want the students that you teach every day to be successful. And so
Right.
you have to determine, you have to have your own moral value compass of, okay, as a teacher, I know that I can only do what's in this box. I can't do what's outside of the box. And so maybe that means once a month, I can only give $25 of my own money. Once a month, I'm not going to give any money. Like, I'm just not that teacher that gives money. Once a month, I'm never going to take students home in my car. Like, I got to the point, I don't know. I don't know. We didn't work together when this happened, but I had a situation that I took a student home, a white student. And a couple days later in the teacher's lounge, they found where the student had said he was going to kill me and did this whole big thing about killing me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I just took that student home. So it really flustered me, because I'm thinking that the student and I had this relationship where the student is drawing pictures about killing me. And so I had decided after that, you know what, it's probably in everybody's best interest. I'm not going to break this rule anymore. I'm never taking a student home, because I'm now impacting myself for crossing the line. This is part of this is my fault because I broke the rules. And sometimes breaking the rules is not worth it. So I'll just say, for those that are interested in teaching, your standard will change as you grow in the profession, but making sure that you have a standard. The other part, we did talk about mentorship, and I'll say that connect to somebody inside of the building or outside of the building that you admire or you appreciate what they are doing, that can help you get back in focus, because emotionally you'll be out of focus sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share your thoughts so that they can get you focused and centered again.
Absolutely.
The other part is that, I'll say this last, is that identify things that will center you. So what grounds you? What supports you? And so knowing that, one of the things that I went through last year was identifying what makes you happy. And so I understood that working with schools, and I'm hearing all these things, sometimes I'm sad and I don't know why I'm sad. And so I had to have a list of things that I know instantly makes me happy in order for me to ground myself, so I can move forward in my day.
And I always highlight this when one of the guests says it. It is, again, this decision about being happy. It is about identifying those things, because a lot of times what we do is we try to look for things to make us happy. It's like, except that it is up to us. You know, we get to say, this is what's going to make me happy. And sometimes, because of the training that we received a lot of times in school, we don't even realize how much control we have. We don't realize that, you know, we have been taught in the, especially K through 12 public, that there is a right answer and the person in front of the room knows it. And if you don't know it, there must be something wrong with you. And we take that lesson into the other parts of life. The other thing that I just want to kind of, with that same kind of thinking, is that there are times where, kind of like the example you're using about the young girl masturbating and sending that, and it being part of their normal social development. Some of it, we have to remember, is that us bringing our values to the table and trying to impose them on other people. So we have different values when it comes to the breadth of our sexual comfort, I'm going to assume. And so, like, for you, somebody masturbating and sending the video might be, oh, let's suspend her. For me, it's like, well, why did she do that and send the video? Like, you supposed to, or why didn't she secure it? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I'd be more concerned about the child porn implications of the person who airdropped it and the sending, than I would the moral implications of masturbating, because I think everybody should masturbate, should do it pretty regularly, to be quite frank. It probably makes the world a lot better. But that's my personal philosophy. But I would be bringing that philosophy to that situation. And so if you have somebody
to the table.
right, and again, I'm just saying the point you made about having a diverse team and a diverse inside the school, outside the school, and recognizing that you are going to be more than just an educator. I mean, one of the ways that you were able to get support, and we were able to get support for ACE, was to tap into our personal networks. We invited all of our friends from all the other places we volunteered for to come in and talk to the students, and we talked to them about how they could work with us to do placements for students and how they could be engaged, and it really worked. And one of the things that Brandy said was about the students who don't have resources. That is a really valid issue, and guess what? That's real. And so it becomes incumbent on us who are educators or who care about education to try to find something. I know Brandy does a really great job of that with her son. Like, she'll be on the phone and calling people and stuff like that. But the reality is that is sometimes the job. Like, sometimes, we're talking about, like, I've never seen a school that ran like ACE before. The school we worked at. And let me see. Sorry. I get that notice that tells me that it's time for me to I get the notice. I get the notice that tells me it's time to get ready to end the show, because I don't want no text message from Donnie telling me that I went over too much. So the alarm came on. I had to turn it off. Well, okay. So you know what? I just decided we're gonna do something a little bit different for the last few minutes of the show. One, we're gonna tell them how to get in contact with you, but oh no, I changed my mind again. That's the cool part about having a show. I was going to say, let's talk about, because I work for you, and, I was trying to get Donnie to understand that I can be a challenging employee, but valuable. But then I realized I don't need to share that with everybody, because we haven't talked about it, and I don't know exactly what you're going to say. So, and this is recorded. So we're going to have a pre-meeting before we do that. But, so let's as we get ready to wrap up, let's first tell the people how they can get in contact with you and why they should get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get in contact with me. I am YouTube, the PD Principal, Twitter, PD Principal. On Facebook, I'm Quinhon Scott on Facebook. And so there are multiple ways you can always contact the show. But really quick, my email address is Quinhon, QUINHONN, SCOTT @gmail.com. I work with school leaders, schools, and school districts. Currently, right now, I'm responsible for supporting school leaders with creating goals that are manageable and obtainable for their schools so that they can pass their 5-year benchmark in the charter world. But please feel free, even if it's like, hey, I'm having this problem in my classroom, definitely love to brainstorm. And I also have a business partner that we often work with individual teachers, specifically in different sectors. So yeah, call on us. We'll be happy to help and support.
Cool. And the gang, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you have been blessed to get some information about becoming a professional educator from Dr. Quinhon Scott. And we are very grateful for you to come through and to bless the audience.
Thank you, Attorney Hannah Blue. You were so beloved at ACE that we called you. I appreciate you having me and wish you all the best.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day. One of the things we're grateful for Dr. Scott to come on and talk with us. But one of the things that Naomi, I just flashed it on the screen again, talked about that people are afraid of powerful people. Well, the reality is that our entire system is designed to keep people from being powerful. Sorry, I got to go ahead and. Sorry, I get the alarm came back on because, again, I'm not trying to have no trouble. But people are afraid of powerful people because they don't know what power really is. And what they have been exposed to in the K through 12 process is that power is abusive. I mean, we talk about often the time we had that the young boy had argued with a teacher that the distance was something else, and the teacher sent a letter home to the parent saying that you should, your kid was disrespectful. Granted, he was right, but he should have just talked to me later and not challenged my authority. The purpose of the educational institution, the way it's designed, is for social control and to teach students how to be better employees. If we're going to change that, we have to change that. We have to suit up, get in, put on our cape, and join the Justice League. Because anything short of that is a disservice to our kids. If you're interested in getting into education, please make sure you hit up the PD principal. Or hit us up at info at grindinggang.com. We have a program where we work with veteran teachers and provide some supports to other individuals. And Dr. Scott is actually one of our facilitators and consultants. Whew, tomorrow we get a chance to talk to Lisa Morgan of Keaton Eccles. We're going to talk about branding and all things small business. How do you get your story out? Because that's one of the things that we need to do, whether it is about business, personal, or our community. We need to make sure that we're telling the story in the way that it needs to be told. All right, super producer, Crazy Horse Morgan, thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow.